The next thing we're going to talk about is a bit of a segue into Mamdani and his new mansion tax, as some people are calling it in New York City.
Yeah, do you want to introduce it?
Yeah, sure. So this is where there's a new tax being proposed, which is a pied-à-terre tax, which is a tax on homes valued over $5 million, which are not the owner's primary residence. And the owner of these homes doesn't live in New York City. So these are being used as investments or vacation homes. And this is in a city where the cost of living is very expensive and New Yorkers often struggle to find decent places to live. And lots of the properties in the city are being bought up as investment pieces because the prices rise so much. So this tax is designed to help the cost of living and the renting housing crisis in the city. Some people are calling it a socialist policy, which in the US is a big buzzword against anything that they don't like in some cases. And some people are praising it. It's a kind of tax that exists in several other countries already, such as France and Canada. So it's not a unique or new thing that doesn't exist elsewhere. And Mamdani himself is coming under fire from people in the Republican Party and the government as a democratic socialist, but I think broadly New Yorkers are quite supportive of this. Many working New Yorkers love the focus on addressing the cost of living and the housing crisis. What are your thoughts on this? Have you seen any other kind of takes on news on this story?
I think this is not a new topic. It's not the first time that we heard taxes about second and third properties. In the UK, we had the new stamp duty that was introduced just 2 years ago, I believe, that had a similar effect, just making sure that there is a way to redistribute wealth, as some of the most wealthy people in the country buy every single property that is on the market.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great investment for them. The asset appreciates. They can sometimes rent it out and gain even more, and then they can sell it, and it's a great investment for them as
Are you in favor
asset owners.
or against the tax?
I am massively in favor of this kind of tax because I think we've talked before on the podcast about wealth tax, but this is the kind of tax that's actually much more realistic. With a wealth tax, wealth can be hidden and it's difficult to quantify, and it's often got implications on having to sell assets, whereas a targeted and specific tax on something that only the richest could possibly afford, something that's not going to affect them in any meaningful way because it's not their primary residence. So in terms of living quality of life, all it's doing is trying to reduce the number of properties that are left vacant in New York City to increase the supply for real working people on the ground, which is who we should be thinking about when we make policy, in my opinion. For the most part, they should be the people that direct the policy. And I think New York is in dire need of somebody like Mamdani to focus on the real life people who actually live and work in the city. For the longevity of the city, you need people living and working in New York. And everywhere where these kinds of things are happening, I think it's one of the best ways that you can literally target wealth in a way that's fair and specific and actually quantifiable.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is the right choice. And I think that Mamdani, based on what he has done so far, he has made the right decisions in New York. I think that when you have a city that is as populous as New York, and you and I have lived in London, so we know exactly what we refer to when we say this. It is extremely important that affordability is reflected across the whole spectrum of people, because the difference in income levels is staggering when you have 10 million people living in the same country. And the same way that the lawyers and the tech entrepreneurs live in London and live in New York, the same way do the bartenders and the waiters and the teachers. And so you need to make sure that the ecosystem is sustainable. The other thing that I would add, and I'm going to do a little self-promotion because I did write an article called "I'll Show You Why Taxes Are Great," which is on my Substack, and I'll probably link it to in the description below, where I was explaining that the tax system that we have in most Western countries was created based on the idea that people would generate most of their wealth through labor and not through assets. And this is why we tax labor higher than we do for capital gains taxes. Now, the system has completely changed because the tax system that was built 80, 90 years ago doesn't reflect the way in which the ultra wealthy in particular generate their wealth. They usually generate most of the wealth from stocks and assets and rentals and appreciation of houses in New York and in London, where you can buy them today at 5 million, never live in any of these houses. and then sell them in a couple years' time at double the price. Now, the same way that we have evolved, and now there is new different ways to generate an income through investments rather than through labor, the same way we should evolve the tax system and make sure that the redistribution of money in the system is done in a fair way. There is no point in having governments that print money in order to keep up with inflation, with the depreciation, in order to facilitate the liquidity of the market, if all the money is then stored in bank accounts of these ultra wealthy. Because the truth is that the reason why inflation and poverty are rising is that we've printed all this money and then we've stacked it away inaccessible to 99% of people. And then the people that have all this money can now go and buy all the properties on the market. And so all of a sudden there are no properties, the properties are extremely expensive, and the people have no money. Exactly. And then people complain that we have printed too much money, but the money is not even circulating in the economy. So I think the tax is the right way to approach this.
Yeah, because these things are not just sat in bank accounts. They are sat in assets like the houses in New York City. And this is a great tax because it's not going after successful New Yorkers. You know, I have nothing against successful people. If you live in New York, this tax doesn't affect you if it's your primary residence. If you need a second apartment in New York for work purposes, this still doesn't affect you because it's only on properties over $5 million, which are not most, work landing pad flats, for example. I mean, a successful person may need that. I get that. This tax still wouldn't affect them. It's only going after 99% of people that this tax will affect will be investment property buyers who do not live in the city. They may not even visit the place, and they're just literally using it to store wealth.
Yeah, I agree. You said it very well.
I like Mamdani as well because he's, I think, doing a great job at connecting with New Yorkers. He focuses on New York so much when he talks about any answer that he gives to the press. He's always focusing it on New York and the people of New York. He's done a great job getting close to Trump, even though he's a democratic socialist. I think he's managed to charm Trump into liking him enough to allow him to enact some of these policies without trying to stop him too much. I think it's a shame that he wasn't born in the US and won't be running for president one day, because I think he's just such a great speaker. He really is very good.
Those are all good points. Independently of what party Mamdani sits in, and he calls himself a social democrat, the thing that I like is that we can judge him based on the policies that he's making. And I think that this is something that politics, whether we're talking about Europe, the UK, or the US, we've been struggling to see. People get attacked just based on the title that they identify with, whether they're Republican, Democrats, or something else. And I think that we are forgetting to evaluate the policies and the proposals, right? There are so many different ideals, and this is probably because of social media and because of how mainstream media has become a little bit polarizing as well. But as soon as we hear how a politician refers to himself as a Republican or a Democrat, then all of a sudden we're attacking them without even listening to what they have to say. And I think that perhaps in New York, and perhaps in many other states and countries and cities as well, we'll finally realize that we need to evaluate any mayoral or government or presidential candidate based on the policies that they recommend and based on the goals that they want to achieve for the citizens. And I think that's what Mamdani is doing.
Absolutely. I think it highlights the importance of local representation in politics, because of his focus on New York is really, really great to see. And it's something I haven't seen for a long time in a politician, where they've really, really just been so focused on supporting the people that they represent in a specific geographical location or city. It's really refreshing, I think. And we could use a bit more of that here, I think, as well.
I also would like to add is the fact that he wasn't backed by hundreds of millions of pounds like other candidates were. And so his rise to the role of mayor was entirely genuine and done by speaking to people and just like promoting his ideas and having people appreciating what he was standing for, rather than having these campaigns that are just sponsored by private companies, lobbyists, multimillionaires that just want to see their friends run for politics.
Yeah, it's such a shame that concept feels so refreshing, but that's the way it should be done. You're right.
It should be refreshing. It should be the normality.
Exactly. So why don't we talk about the final topic of this week's current events? We're going to be talking about the SpaceX IPO and also the acquisitions it's been doing recently.